So I hope you can all see that. The theme that I would like to develop tonight is about some reflections on the first noble truth. Then I go to the next slide. The Four Noble Truths are the Buddha teachings. After he got enlightened in the village Uruvela, he went to meet the five Kodana brothers with whom he has practiced for several times in order to share the insight with them. So that the first time he talked about the Four Noble Truths in this Dharma talk that you can find in Thay's book, The Heart of the Buddha Teaching. So the young Siddhartha had everything to be happy in a worldly environment, but confronted by different images of suffering, he decided to leave the palace and wander along the Ganges River in order to seek a solution to the suffering and probably his own suffering. He studied with several teachers, great teachers, but in the end he was not happy enough. So he left all the teachers and going solo on his own way. And until maybe 4 years later, in the village named Uruvela, after something like 49 days sitting, practicing underneath the Bodhi tree, and also quitting the ascetic way of practicing, he came to be enlightened. And in the teaching, he talked about the first Four Noble Truths, which is awareness of suffering, the first one, and the aspiration to overcome suffering. So he has this aspiration within him. But to be young, to be surrounded with all the luxurious things of the world at his disposition, and he's still not happy and was trying to find a way to have an answer to the suffering. That was wonderful. Today we are aware of the suffering, but do we have we taken some drastic decisions to quit what we have and go on to practice alone, or to join a monastic sangha, abandon our worldly life? So it needs to have a very great mind to be able to do that, I guess. So there is a path leading to the cessation of suffering. And the path is called the Eighth Noble Path, that the drawing next to the work that you can see. So my talk today is not about all that, just I am concentrating on the first noble truth, awareness of suffering. And in order to go into it, I am asking myself sometimes, have I suffered? Have I been aware of suffering? I guess I am, I was, but I also had some wonderful moments when I was young. And you can ask yourself, what is the most happiness time that you had in your lifetime? And for me, it was myself at 8 years old, receiving a cake from my mother, came back from the market, and eating that cake, which is called in Vietnamese, bánh in. Laura knows that. And watching the raindrops falling onto the ground and listening to the sound of the rain on the roof of our house and see the bubbling of the raindrops onto the ground. My mind was completely taken by that wonderful moment. And while eating the cake slowly and enjoying this moment, that was the most happiest time of my life that I can recall. And then when we grow up, we are confronting all kinds of stress, anxiety, fear, anguish, uneasiness, pain. Anyway, that is part of our situation that I am inviting you to see the third slide now. So the Buddha called suffering with the Sanskrit word dukkha. And we have several translations of the word dukkha. Suffering, pain, unsatisfactoriness, anguish, unease, disease, stress, ill, affliction, discontentment. And among those translations, the word suffering is the one that has been used most frequently by several teachers. And here is the first part of the Dharma talk given by the Buddha about suffering. Here, bhikkhu, is the noble truth of suffering. Birth is dukkha. Old age is dukkha. Sickness is dukkha. Death is dukkha. And then he enumerates sorrow, grief, mental anguish, and disturbance are dukkha. To be with those you dislike is dukkha. To be separated from those you love is dukkha. Not having what you long for is dukkha. In other words, to grasp the 5 aggregates, I will describe that later, as though they constitute a self, is dukkha. So that is the Buddha's words. Birth is dukkha. Of course, birth in the time of the Buddha is not easy. Birth is quite something. Giving birth is really a huge event because of the health care condition at that time and with all the risk, but you also give birth to someone to life. So I will go into that now. But before I go that far, I would like to mention here the three kinds of dukkha, which are not directly taught by the Buddha, as our teacher said in his book. This is the answer given by Sariputra, the Buddha disciple, when he was asked, "What is dukkha?" And this is what Sariputra replied. There are, friend, three kinds of suffering. The suffering of suffering, dukkha, dukkhata. The suffering of composite things, samskara, dukkhata. And the suffering associated with change. So the first one, suffering of suffering, which means the suffering that we can feel caused by the inflicted wounds, such as body wounds or mental affliction. When I fell 3 years ago on the riverbank, trying to get a picture of the Canadian goose on the river, I fell. My face struck the ground and I had heavy pain on my bones, on my face bones and my jaw. The pain that you can feel. So that is suffering of suffering. And then there's a suffering of composite things, because things are all made of everything else. Things are composite. The paper is made of non-paper elements, as I taught. Everything is composed of everything else. And then among those composite things, materials, following the law of physics, decay. Uranium becomes lead. Everything decay. Our body decay. So all things decay. And then in the end, it's deteriorating enough and it broken, collapse, exploding. So one thing in those composite things fail, the whole thing may also collapse. So that is the suffering due to the composition of things. And then you have the suffering associated with change. And it is more like impermanence. When something happens, we suffer. So those sudden change happen when one component of the composite thing fail, things collapse. And we call that in our Vietnamese term, vô thường, things change. So there are three kinds of suffering. But it is not the Buddha taught. And this becomes the foundation of the Theravadan Buddhism. They consider that life is suffering. And Thầy was very much against this teaching because life also has its happiness side. Is not always suffering. The next one. So now I come to my reasoning. When we say birth is suffering, we make it sound either like suffering is something birth is doing. And this has some part of it in the old time. Even today, birth is a miraculous event. And that birth is a form of suffering. Birth can do suffering or is a form of suffering. Alternative thought could be that birth, and I added here aging, can only be conditions or situations for suffering to arise. So which denote mainly an experience, a mental state of how we feel. And then I add, I believe that all the great suffering that the Buddha listed, that we saw on the second or the third slide, are not just conditions leading to suffering to arise, but they are suffering themselves. I will give you an example in my next slide. And here I say, the Buddha teaching of the Four Noble Truths begin with the injunction that we are to attain liberation, must understand and fully experience how our life is entwined and defined by dukkha, meaning our mental experience of discomfort, pain, anxiety, stress, disturbance, each of which is felt as suffering in our mind. So, as a person leading to my age now, I have gone through all that. When we were young, we were well protected sometimes by our parents, and we don't have to worry about this thing or that thing. All we need to do is just study and, play well and listening to our parents. But when you are growing up and you are thrown into life, then you start experiencing all kinds of mental discomfort. Although I will talk about body pain next slide. So in my life, I was given all kinds of job that is demanding, and I was not well prepared to do such a job. And I have a lot of stress. For example, when I joined the National Research Council, I was maybe 37, 40 years old. People in the National Research Council laboratory, they have 20, 30, 40 years of expertise, and they are all experts So the young one coming into the group, I feel so stressful. How do I perform in order to be recognized, in order to keep my job? That is not simple. It is a very intimidating environment. I never studied high speed flow. And here, when the National Research Council was restructuring, they sent me to the high speed lab doing wind tunnel testing. The speed of the wind could become 5 times the speed of sound, what we call Mach number 5. So I have no preparation. And that is very difficult when you don't know what you are doing and that you are requested to perform tests and you don't understand the physics of what is going on. That is not simple. There was no book available at that time, but I was lucky. I got some good colleagues that were helping me. But I feel uneasiness, I feel stressed. Going to work is like going to hell, meeting all the experts, feeling intimidated. That was not simple. So that is part of the suffering. But having the practice from Thầy teaching, I was able to take care of myself among all those difficult conditions. And I worked through that, and in the end, it was not too bad. I had a wonderful career. So, and then the next one will show you what I would like to call as body pain. I use the name Robert as an issue's name. Robert is suffering with his aging body. Being 80 years old, this year, Robert struggled with tinnitus, arthritis, and rheumatism because our body aged. The penetrating noise in his head, the pain and the tiredness dispel his joy of living. There are also moments that Robert enjoys life, especially during moments when he is walking along the river, or when listening to the music, or when meeting up with loved ones and friends, or when enjoying a nice cake in a neighborhood cafe. But the overall felt malaise predominates. Robert experiences his body increasingly as a hindrance, disabling him to engage in the activities he disconnected or he loves. Struggling with the age-related deterioration, he feels more and more disconnected from the world around him, alternately unable or unwilling to reconcile himself with its exchange and resisting body. So here I exaggerate a little bit just to show that some people with their aging body may go through such a sequence. So people may suffer from the consequences of old age like Robert, explicated in feeling of loneliness, social isolation, and disconnectedness, and fears for further decline and dependency. So this is real. We are heading to that stage. And so among the 8 great suffering, the 7 ones that you cannot control, how can I control the birth that my mother gave me to life? How can I control when my father met my mother, giving birth to me later? I cannot control that. Can I control illness? Not too much. I was eating correctly, I was happy, I was leading a life with reasonable encountering. I was how can I say in English? J'étais sage. Sage. Wise. Not wise, but I was really un enfant docile, correct. Oui. But I cannot control the illness. Why all of a sudden illness struck me? My autoimmune system at the given moment declared that they don't want to collaborate with me anymore. Bang! Oh my God. Then aging, right? It's not too bad for the moment, but who knows? I may lead to worse condition. We all go through that. Decay. Separated from the one we love. Okay, I lost my mother. I was sad and have grief for so many years. At 8 years old, I fell in love with a lady in my class. There was no cell phone, so I could not send her a text telling her that I love her. I want to go out with her. So it was a mute love. And one day I have to leave to study in Canada. 2 years later, bang, she got married. So Vinh was suffering. I didn't control that. Living with someone I don't like, that has not happened to me in my own life. But at work, I have bosses, I have directors, I have directors who were so mean and bullying. So what can I do? And now I have to live with Donald J. Trump. What did I do wrong? He dictates the condition of happiness around me. I cannot control that. But then on the 8th great suffering, there's something you can work on. This is the 5 skandhas. Your body and your mind. You can control it. So you have form, rupa, physical body, you have feeling, sensation, you have perceptions, you have mental formation, which also sometimes understood as sentiments, and you have your consciousness arise from the interaction with the external world and with the inside of yourself. And you practice to be able to have some control of that. You can embrace your feeling. You can embrace your body. You can take care of the emotion, the sentiment. and you can be aware of the interaction of the Dharma with a small d, all what happened in your life, thanks to the practice. Your beloved one decide to marry someone else, you don't have control of that. But you can control the feeling that comes inside you. So that's how the Bodhisattva Avalokiteshvara become enlightened when she found out that the 5 skandhas are empty. When you read the sutra, the Heart Sutra, the Bodhisattva Avalokiteshvara, when contemplating on the 5 skandhas, found them equally empty. She overcome all illness. And Vietnamese, I remember very easily. We recited, my mother recited days and night. Bồ Tát quán từ tại khí quán chiếu thâm sâu bóng soi thấy 5 uẩn đều không có tự tánh. Thực chứng điều ấy xong Ngài vượt khắc tất cả mọi khổ đau ách nạn. That's the first part of the Heart Sutra. So, which means that with the contemplation, we slowly undo our ego. Undo our ego. So that we become more grateful. We know we are lucky. We know that the other people's happiness also is important for our happiness. We know that we interrelated with all people. We are not alone. And our happiness is not an individual matter. So if we continue to look at the interbeing, interrelatedness of all things, we should lead onto the right direction. We feel less and less egocentric. If our ego is too big, we become narcissistic. And if our ego is too small, hyper, then we lose all our self-esteem, which is not good either. We need a middle way to survive in our daily life. So that's a difficult subject for your listening. Vinh is bowing out.